Let's talk about the simulation scenario, specifically your firm in the global microcomputer marketplace. Let's first talk about how the business simulation is conducted. Everybody is placed on a team, and your teams are placed in a new venture scenario, as I explained before. You have to start up and you have to run a completely new business. And the opposition is played out by the competing teams in your course with exactly the same scenario. Everybody starting from scratch with a market that is non-existent at the time. All your opponents make decisions that influence market developments. Their decision influence which markets develop faster, which markets develop not as fast. They develop competitive dynamics. Some markets will be very competitive with many teams competing in the same market. Other markets will have maybe one or two competitors only. We have different forms of each firm's computers that are basically positioned with different functionalities to appeal to different market segments, and of course at different prices, etc., etc. The opponents also have decisions to make on their operations, whether they're going to run a very sophisticated operation with a differentiation strategy, whether they run a mass market strategy that is a low-cost provider strategy, whether they run a niche strategy, etc., etc. All of these decisions flow into the market, and you can get market research every quarter that you then need to interpret to see how the markets develop and how your competing firms are positioned in the market. The market information flows into your business team, and you then make decisions to create your own strategy, because in the end what you really want to do, you want to create a dominant market position. And dominant market positions can mean different things for different firms. A dominant market position can mean that in one market segment you really kill it. You have the dominant market share and you make a lot of money in that segment. It could also be that you overall have a reasonable market share, and due to a good production strategy you have high gross margins or high net margins. Or it could be that you run a high price, highly sophisticated differentiation strategy, and while your market share is not that great, your margins are fantastic, and therefore you are actually dominating the market in the differentiator positioning. So as I said, dominant market position can mean different things, and you need to make the case for what you feel will be your dominant market position strategy when you negotiate for external funds from venture capitalists. Every firm and its business team has to take care of multiple tactical areas of responsibility. That includes marketing, finance, distribution, production, human resources, overall leadership. You are asked to sign up for responsibility for specific functions. I usually asked for you taking care of two functions. And if you look at the number of people in your team and you look at the number of functional responsibilities, you will deduct that you probably have two people in your firm taking care of the same functionality. That is great, because I would like to have 4 eyes and 2 brains going deep in each functional area to make sure that multiple points of view might be brought to the table for your discussion. How do we conduct the simulation? Each team receives information on the current situation. In quarter 1, You have not much information given the fact that we start from scratch, but you order market research in quarter one decision making, and you then get some market information based on what customers potentially want and how much they're willing to pay, etc., etc. You then evaluate the current situation. Strategy will be formulated by your team, and your tactics flow from strategy and are put into place. As I said before, these are sometimes easy in the first couple of quarters, and they become more complex as we go forward in the simulation. You are then feeding your tactical decisions into the marketplace simulation, and for that I need you to go to the marketplace web services. The marketplace is a third-party provider, and we are going to have a link in our web shell, course shell, so that you can click on it and go straight to the simulation software, and your decisions have to be inserted in the simulation software, not in our course shell. You feed the decisions into marketplace. The decisions of your competitors will be fed as well. And it is extremely important that you meet the deadlines for decision making, because the decisions will not be run until all teams have entered their tactics and decision making. I am giving you only a very limited window of delay with point and monetary deductions. If you have not submitted your final decisions by that time, then the simulation will run with whatever decisions you have made, and usually that leads to very, very bad outcomes for your performance. And I strongly encourage you to make sure that your decisions are submitted in deadline time. The responsible party for the decisions to be submitted is the president at the time. So there's one person on your team who's going to be responsible. That's the president for quarters 1 through 4. That's the next president for quarter number 5. And that's the third president for quarters number 6 through 8. It is the obligation and responsibility of the president to have the team together so all decisions are made and submitted by deadline. You can, of course, inquire information for your strategy based on internal operations. How did you do with your decisions? What happened in your processes? What happened in your production? How satisfied are your workers? How efficient are your workers? How effective and efficient is your production operation? These internal operations data, pieces of data, come back every single quarter and should be analyzed in depth. You get customer reactions to market decisions because you can see how many customers you have, don't have, what they think about your branding, what they think about your advertising, what they think about your pricing. And you can also see how customers react to your competitors. And you can also see what your competitors actually do. What pricing did they put in? What products do they put in the market, etc., etc. And you need to really evaluate the current situation based on analysis of all the data that I just mentioned. And that analysis will probably take up about half of the time of your decision-making processes for the new quarter. And then you are developing your action for implementing your strategy through your tactical decisions, which you then feed into marketplace. Let me give you a little bit of advice. It does not make sense to do the analysis together when you're sitting together in whatever format you decide to work. It does not make sense because you don't have enough time. What you really need to do is you really need to prepare the decisions for your areas of responsibility. And then as you have done the analysis, have prepared your draft decision, only then get together as a team and discuss the decisions that you have made based on analysis and see how they sync up with the rest of the team. That's the way that most of the successful firms have worked in the past. The game scenario is very easy. You and your partners have decided to enter the international microcomputer industry. You have desktops, you have laptops, and you have tablets. The industry is in its introductory stage, which is of course not true because we have an industry like that already, but for the purposes of simulation, it's in the introductory stage. And you have other firms who are entering the market simultaneously. You can have sales offices and markets in 5 different areas of the world. You have North America, Latin America, Europe, Middle East and Asia, as well as the Asian Pacific markets. These are the regions for which you have different global marketplaces, and you can create sales offices in each of them. You can also create web centers in these areas, and sales offices would be the brick and mortar offices or the sales offices where people physically reside. Web offices, of course, everybody knows, are internet-based sales efforts. You know that sales offices that are brick and mortar have a smaller footprint. Web offices have, of course, a much higher reach, larger reach. You have 5 different market segments that are predetermined by market research. You have a cost cutter segment. That's kind of self-explanatory. You have a workhorse segment. You have a traveler segment. You have an innovator segment, and you have Mercedes segment, or what I call a luxury segment. And of course, as you can see here, they are somewhat linear, going up in an almost 45-degree angle in regard to the 2 characteristics of price and performance. These are segments that are predetermined, and you can decide on how you enter the market, what kind of trajectory you want to work in the development of your firm. You can decide on whether you want to focus on certain segments and leave others out. That's the basic characteristic for your simulation. You have 5 global markets, and you have 5 global market segments. I am going to ask you a couple of questions to make sure that we are on the same page on the market scenario.